Welcome to the creepy parlor, where we delve into the dark side with an undercurrent of light-hearted fun. Our discussions will explore gothic, macabre, or creepy topics. The first Tuesday of every month, we will host a haunted happy hour where you can join us for a group conversation that focuses on ghosts, weird events, urban legends, and more. Here at the Creepy Parlor, our subject matter may be spooky, but our spirits are high. You can catch the Creepy Parlor every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on WLFE DB Radio.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Creepy Parlor. I'm Genevieve, and I will be your ghostess for the next hour. And I'm absolutely delighted that you're sharing this time with me this evening. I'm even more delighted to introduce my guests for tonight. Here with me tonight, I have Kristy Sumner from Soul Sisters Paranormal and Miranda Young from Ghost Biker Explorations. So I'm going to let them talk about who they are and what they do. Here we go. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you so much for having us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So go ahead and tell everybody who you are, please.
All right. Well, I'm Kristy Sumner. I'm the founder of Soul Sisters Paranormal.
And I'm Miranda Young, and I'm the founder of Ghost Biker Explorations.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about quite a few paranormal things this evening, I'm hoping, right?
That's what we're here for.
Dominic says hi. Rob and Joan are also saying hi. They are also paranormal investigators based out of Tampa, Florida.
Oh, fantastic. I'm actually out of Ocala.
Not too far in. This is my sister, Jillian. I have to acknowledge her, especially since we have Soul Sisters tonight. So let's start with you, Kristy. How long have you guys been doing paranormal investigations?
Well, we actually started in 2013, and it's a team that I formed with my twin sister, Jenny, and our younger sister, Michelle, and two family friends. And we basically go all over the country looking for historic and reportedly haunted locations. And we really provide a historical narrative of those locations, as well as conducting paranormal investigations to see if we can either validate or debunk those paranormal claims. In 2020, my sister Jenny and I, my twin and I, actually became the investigators for the team, for logistic reasons, really. And the other members actually just join in when they can. But for right now, we've actually moved to a 2-investigator format.
Yeah, and I'm Miranda Young, and I'm a motorcycle riding paranormal investigator. I travel around the country on my motorcycle to different haunted and historic locations. Visit some major locations, as well as a lot of local legends is what I like to focus on. And like Kristy and her team, I cover the historical narrative on my web series. And I've been investigating for a little over 10 years, started out with a team, and 4 years ago, I started Ghost Biker Explorations. And I'm primarily a solo investigator.
Primarily solo, you said?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Usually it's either just myself and a camera person, or just myself filming vlog style, and then sometimes also collaborating with other teams like Soul Sisters.
Very cool. Very cool. Very important question here from my sister. How do I get these jobs?
Just go out and start investigating and really become a struggling artist.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the best way to do it, I'm sure. So I'm guessing that we already believe in ghosts, right? I don't have to go into that question.
We do.
Yes.
Yes. You guys, I kind of briefly talked a little bit about this the first time that we met, but I'm not a ghost. I'm not a paranormal investigator. I'm a storyteller. So I love everything that you guys are doing, but I'm really drawn to the history and that legend of how the paranormal activity continues and all that stuff. I love that stuff.
And that's one of what we delve into, both of us, for Soul Sisters and Ghost Biker, we believe that the history really is what is drawing us to these locations and really what's important. So even absent any paranormal activity that we would capture on an investigation, Soul Sisters is going to produce a video and give that historical narrative, because we feel that the historic preservation of these locations and really the historic nature of the place itself is what's important in what we do.
Yeah, and I echo that sentiment as well, because if I go and investigate a location and there's not any type activity, the type of locations that I like to pick are ones that have a strong enough story and a strong enough history that they'll be able to stand on their own when we put them out in a video. We've just been very fortunate that we've gotten some really cool activity at these different locations that we've gone and highlighted.
That's awesome. And I think we've talked about this before, you and I, Kristy. I think that the history, having that paranormal element to the history, really helps people to remember that history.
Mm-hmm. And you're absolutely right. That's a great way to say that. Basically, the paranormal is just another lens in which to view the history of these locations. And I'm paraphrasing that from Fort Mifflin, my contact there at Fort Mifflin, which is just an amazing location to investigate. Again, for that history as well as the paranormal aspect. But if you go in with the mindset of first researching the historical narrative of these locations and being able to relay that to your audience, then the paranormal really does become secondary, at least for us. You do have these teams that will go out there, or YouTubers that will go out there and really just do a different style than what we do, where they're actually in there doing a live in the moment. And for me personally, I think that really skips a lot of why the location is important. So to be able to tell the story historically and then couple that with the paranormal to see if that validates that history is really what we do. And that's the mindset that we came up with right away. That was how we were going to do our videos.
Yeah, and it's kind of the same way here, and I take it just a little step further, being that I'm a biker. The paranormal is actually third on my show. I like to definitely, highlight the history, but then also the travel, and let people know that it's not just about, the destination. There's all these different locations and all of this different history along the way that you might not think about as you're passing through a small town. So I try to cover all of that with the travel to get to that destination, the history, and then the paranormal. Like I said, it's usually third as far as on my show.
Interesting. So you do the historical research first before you go to a location?
We actually do. Soul Sisters actually does. So we do a really deep dive into historical archives, state archives, the Smithsonian, the Library of Congress, to really see what we can find about the location. And that really allows us to guide our investigation when we're there. So the research allows us to formulate investigation questions. It allows us to bring different trigger items or create trigger items that we can take with us in the investigation. And then afterwards, after we conduct the investigation and we go through the evidence review, we will also go back and verify that with the research, or do a deeper dive if we feel that we have to.
Yeah, and we're the same way as well. And especially since I'm usually traveling on my motorcycle, I like to really target my tools that I take, because I have to travel light. And so I like to target the tools as well as the trigger items that I'm taking. So I always look at, if I'm going to be spending X amount of hours at a location, I always really want to double that with my research. And so so I always go in, do my research first, or if someone's come to me with a story about a location, I always like to try to find as much information as I can, target my tools and my trigger items, and then go into the investigation. If I'm able to go another, on multiple days, I like to do that, but I always like to spend more time researching up front than I do as far as the investigation.
So just so that I know that there may be some people that are watching that aren't really familiar with paranormal investigation, can you just describe what trigger items are and what they're used for?
Well, for us, the definition that I'll give, it's an item or something that you take with you that is in an attempt to elicit a response from a spirit or an entity that may be in the location. So, for example, when we investigated at West Virginia State Penitentiary, one of the spirits there, his name is Red Snyder. He's supposed to be the spirit of a guy that was the leader of the Aryan Brotherhood. He was in the West Virginia State Penitentiary for murder. Really bad guy. But two of his vices that he had were tobacco and watching Days of Our Lives. So what we did in that moment is, or in that investigation, is we downloaded an episode of Days of Our Lives onto our laptop, and we put that in the cell and let it run for an hour while we went and investigated another location of the prison, in order to trigger him to communicate with us. So that was our trigger item for the night, that episode of Days of Our Lives. And we feel because of that, we were able to have a really good session with him where we were getting voices on our voice recorder as well as indications on our K2 meters that he was there and he appreciated what we did for him. So that's really, that's how I would define a trigger item.
Yeah, same here. Anything that we can essentially trigger the type of activity. It can be something as simple, like she said, as something targeted to that area that the spirit likes, or it might be era related, or taking cigarettes and stuff to a prison. So we try to think outside the box when we're doing that, and of course, sometimes it'll come to you, when you're there, and, it might be yourself or a person that you're able to use as a trigger item as well.
Mm-hmm. And what I really, you have a little, Miranda, you have a hi from Sarah DeSario.
He's there. Thank you for watching.
And Joan Allen here, I popped this up a little bit while you were chatting, that she'd love to get with you sometime and share experiences that she had in 2005 and 2006.
Yeah, Jen, we'll definitely get together and talk about that for sure.
And Dominic says, hey all fam, here, how's all? The thing that I am really, really appreciative of is in your use of the trigger items, it's not provocational, it's respectful. I've watched, obviously, of course, I'm going to watch your videos, but you guys have such a respectful approach, and I think that that's commendable. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And, just to back up a little bit, we actually met through the paranormal. So when Ghost Biker actually started a couple of years ago, I started following her, and then I emailed her just to say congratulations on her season. And because of that, we really formed this friendship through the paranormal. And it's because of that style, because of that non-provocation style. We feel that you can go in and get evidence without having to be forceful, without having to provoke, without having to, hit your chest with bravado. That's really not what we do. And that's what I really appreciate about Miranda as well. So thank you for that comment, because we do have that style, and it's something that's very important to us.
Yeah, and I like to look at, when I go to visit somebody, I always take wine or take something, to give to that person, as welcome me into their home. I look at it the same way whenever I'm going to some of these different locations. I really consider it an honor whenever we're able to get some of this communication. So a trigger item or a gift, I like to look at it that way, is that, I'm bringing a gift to them that they might enjoy. They can either keep or they may enjoy it for the time being. So that's how I typically look at it. And just to play off of what Kristy was saying, that was the thing that really drew me to investigate and get to know Kristy better and her team, was their respectful approach. Some locations may call for, and like I said, we don't provoke, but it may call for a different tone, a more aggressive tone if you're in a prison, to see if that might trigger some activity. But as far as provocation, that's something that we just don't do. And we've had good luck not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have a comment here. Miranda and Kristy are two of the best in the field of paranormal, and they're both extremely influential to our crew and many others as well. That's so nice.
Thank you, Peppy. We appreciate that.
To me, it's sort of like, I have an anthropology background, so I always kind of look at it as like studying the ghosts as though they're a separate culture, like it's an anthropological study in some ways. Back when I first started doing the ghost tours here in Keyport, there's the bodies of two of the victims that we talk about are buried not too far from here. So I made a point of visiting their graves and leaving flowers and just, telling them I'm trying to keep your memory alive. I'm trying to be respectful because I really think that that's important.
And you're absolutely right, and I'll speak for Miranda as well a little bit on this one, is because, to Miranda's point, we do feel like we're being welcomed into this environment. But for us, we also feel like, we're trying to communicate with somebody that had a human experience at one point, right? For us, for Soul Sisters, we are trying to communicate with those people that had that experience, that they lived, they died, and now for some reason they're still able to communicate with us. And the very essence of the human existence is to be acknowledged and to be, received. And so for us, that's the way that we go into an investigation. We're acknowledging you, we're introducing ourselves to you, and we're acknowledging you for who you are and who you were. And so to your point, when we go to locations like the Villisca Axe murder house, the first thing that we did before we even started the investigation is we went out to the cemetery and we paid our respects to the Moore family and said, we'll be in your house tonight. If you're willing to communicate with us, we'd love that communication. So to your point, we absolutely respect that. And that's another reason why we're so fond of investigating with Miranda.
It really is evident when you watch the videos. It really is.
Well, thank you.
Just real quick, I want to point out Bill's comment here. A friend of mine who used to live in a haunted house used to leave a radio tuned to an R&B station on 24/7 in his basement. The ghosts were thankful.
Mm-hmm. And again, that's a great idea because it's acknowledgement of, hey, we're going to share this space with you. If you don't harm us or threaten us in any way, you're welcome to stay. But because of that, here's something that we acknowledge your presence with. So I think that's a really cool idea.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, as far as residential cases and such that I've dealt with, that's been the thing that has either helped to move along or to help kind of calm what's going on in the situation is just acknowledgement. They'll either move on or you can cohabitate and live in harmony. That way, it's just acknowledgement. That's what we want when we're here on earth. Everyone wants to be acknowledged and be heard. I think it's the same thing when it comes to the spirit world. Absolutely.
I agree. And I hope that if I ever become a ghost, that people approach me that way too. I like dogs. They can bring dogs.
There you go. And another thing that's kind of interesting about what we do is a little bit different in the paranormal community is, Soul Sisters is an all-female team, and obviously Ghost Biker is as well. And I think women really approach things with a sense of empathy. I'm not going to say I'm empathic, but we automatically have that empathetic nature. And so the way we approach our investigations, it mirrors that empathy, I think. And I think that's another reason why we've been very successful in getting compelling unexplained evidence when we go to these locations. Yeah, I agree.
It goes back to, for me, it goes back to anthropology. The main primatologists are all female. So.
Yeah.
And it's, for me, it's not that it's better one way or the other, because when I was a member of a team, I was the only female on the team, and when we would go into these different locations, we had these different roles in our daily jobs, that we would do different experiments, seeing if someone who's a cop. We had a cop on the team. If the approach was different, if I went into an area, we would have just myself going into the child's room and talk and see if there was a different type of response to that versus if one of the males went in, or if it was a mixed gender, team or whatever at that point. So we would often try different experiments. And so it's not throwing off on one or the other. It's just, it's kind of scientific fact that, women are more empathetic on things. And so, it just brings a different approach. Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. And I think, well, actually I want to ask, when you're saying that you have different people going into the same situation, did you notice significantly different evidence that you would collect or different experiences?
In some locations, yes. One in particular was at Octagon Hall in Franklin, Kentucky, which is, a home. They were Southern sympathizers during the Civil War. And on that particular investigation, one of the team members had brought his wife along. So I had another female there with me. And we had done several different experiments in the child's room, but upstairs on the second floor was a makeshift hospital. And so we had done some experiments with just the guys, and they sent just us girls in. They sat out, watched the monitor, listening to audio. And we went in and just sort of did a quiet EVP session, just sitting there asking questions as they came to us. And I can't remember if it was myself or the other lady, but we decided we were going to listen to some music. And so we played Amazing Grace. And as we were playing it, we got a female singing along with us, which was really cool. And so then afterwards, we just said a little prayer, kind of a comforting sort of thing. And we captured this male's voice that said, Amen. And so, and there were no men in the room. So it was really cool to see that, because I mean, it just sort of came to us while we were in there, which was a different approach than what the men had taken while they were in there. So that was definitely one experience where we were able to see a difference between the males in the room and versus us females in there.
Yeah, this Robin Jones comment too. Everyone responds differently to different people, dead or alive. Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes we forget, when we're talking about paranormal activity, we're talking about ghosts, we forget that they were different people when they were alive. They're not just all one type of entity at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's why, you get different experiences at a prison than you would at a lighthouse or, in a sane asylum versus an axe murder house. So you have to go in again. That's why we do a lot of research before we go to these locations. So we know that history and we can relate to those experiences and that historical story. So yeah, it is not just dead or alive, but it's also places and circumstances.
And I think too, that's kind of why you may have a different experience. If I go to investigate a location and I don't get any activity, it doesn't mean it's not haunted. It may just be an off night, or it may be whoever's in there is either picking up on something from me, or they don't want to communicate with me because maybe they don't like me, And so going back at a different time, you may be talking to somebody else, or they may have it may be like when you're having a bad day with somebody, they just don't want to communicate for whatever reason. So I think that translates over into the spirit world as well.
Absolutely.
I like Nancy's comment here. I'm fascinated listening to this tonight and learning so much more that I never knew. Yay.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
Now we're educating. This is excellent.
We try to.
And Joan says, boy, did that give me goosebumps.
Yeah, we have several stories that tend to give a lot of people goosebumps.
We'll get into that after we do the commercial. I have a few more questions for you. Before, and then we can get into like specifics, like really good details after. Have you ever had an actual experience that frightened you?
For us personally,
whatever you're comfortable talking about.
We've actually, there's been times where we've been startled. You can't go into an abandoned prison or an insane asylum and hear a door slam or hear a scream from down the corridor and not be startled. But for us, everybody on Soul Sisters has a research background and an advanced degree. So for example, I've got a PhD, Jenny has a PhD, we've got a couple of lawyers and a master's holder on the team. So for us, it's a research experiment, really, to go into these locations. And so we run towards it rather than away from it. When we're in the moment, it's such an adrenaline rush that it's actually more amazing than it is frightening. So I can honestly say we've never run out of a location before.
Yeah, and I often will, if I get the opportunity, I'll often sleep in the locations, just because I like to put myself in that vulnerable state. I like to investigate as long as I can, but if I can get maybe 2 hours to kind of lay down, keep the recorders going, and keep the the audio and the video going, then and see what happens if the response is different. Like Dr. Sumner in Soul Sisters, I've had experiences where maybe I've been startled, but I don't get too terrified. There's been a couple cases that I've done that has left me kind of creeped out and in the position where things have gotten really real really quick. And that kind of puts you in a situation where when you lay down to go to bed at night, you have to think, I really experienced this. And it can be a little creepy after the fact, but so much in the moment, honestly, I'm more afraid of the living than I am of the dead.
Amen.
I just want to address Janet's question here real quick. She watched a video today where a lady had a trigger word that her deceased father was supposed to give her as proof of the afterlife, and she never got it. Have you ever had a positive response to trigger words? And what is your theory as to why she didn't hear from her father? Ooh, that's a deep question.
Well, I think I'll start it for me personally. I don't think that every person becomes a spirit or a ghost once they die. I do think that there are specific reasons why certain people can remain behind, whether it be unfinished business or they have a message to give. And so in that example, it may be that her father had no unfinished business and, he didn't want to remain behind. So that's a very interesting scenario, but that's the only answer that I can come up with. And as far as a trigger word, the thing that comes to mind that actually involved both of us, we were at Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary, and we were doing an experiment. It's called the Estes method. And Miranda, as you can see, I'm wearing her Ghost Biker shirt. Her Ghost Biker shirt, her logo is handlebars and a motorcycle. So one of the, we were doing an experiment called the Estes method, and it happens where Miranda has headphones on and it's connected to a spirit box, which generally speaking is an AM/FM radio that has been modified to very quickly sweep through frequencies. So when you turn it on, all you hear is so the theory is that spirits can use the white noise to speak into that spirit box. So with Miranda's headphones on and a blindfold on, she really goes into a deprivative state, if you will. So her senses are totally focused on what she's hearing on that spirit box. And during this session, we were down probably about 30 feet down the cell block.
We weren't even in the same cell block. We all were out.
Okay, yeah, so we're about 30 feet away. And so she couldn't hear us, she couldn't see us. And we're asking questions, and a motorcycle rode by, and again, she couldn't hear it, but one of us said, I think that's a motorcycle, and Miranda said motorcycle. And so that was a very interesting thing for us, and that's the only real example that I can come up with a trigger word, I guess, in a reverse situation when you think about it.
And, it's important to note in that top situation too, we also had cameras on myself being in that sensory deprived state, as well as on Kristy asking the questions. So you can actually also hear in real time what we're hearing and where I was. You couldn't hear that on the recorder of the motorcycle go by. So, my answer to that on Janet's question is I also feel like it's about timing. And I think that could be something that's forced. I think a lot of things happen in a more subtle way. I mean, it's great to sit there and say, okay, we've got this word that when you pass, we'll say it or whatever. But sometimes I think messages come in a more subtle way than just that. So, and again, it could be the timing. I don't know how long this person had passed since. And of course, it also depends on your belief structure. But I think sometimes people, they come to us, they may not have unfinished business, but they may have a message when we need it at another time. Or we may get things that we know are a message, and it's just in a more subtle way. My advice on that would be to really, one, be patient, and two, really just kind of look deeper, because sometimes things happen that we don't realize in the moment, but looking back, I think a trigger word is a little too obvious.
Mm-hmm. We are going to take a really quick break, and then I want to address Steve's question here when we get back, and then maybe talk a little bit about some of the other really cool places that you've been.
Sure.
Excellent. Bear with me for a moment, please. We'll be right back.
Coming to you live from Psycho 13. Join us here throughout the week for all things in audio, visual, and literary content. You can also find us on the World Wide Web at psychomantium13.com. Join Psychomantium 13 and enter the weird.
WLFE-DB.com, where you can find vodcast shows, podcasts, and more, like Where's My Sage, Inside the Drag Closet, Across the Pond, Paratalk Radio, Just Cindy, and more. So go check out WLFE-DB.com, where talk radio is a whole lot better. Our shows are your shows, and that there makes for a great talk radio.
Hey guys and dolls, this is Casey DeVille, the better half of DeVille Inc., Baltimore, Maryland. If you're ever in Baltimore, stop in and see me and Tony. Invisible Bree, 5920 Eastern Avenue, Baltimore, Maryland, 21224. Give us a call if you're in the area, 410-400-9641, or look us up on the web at DeVilleInc.com. DeVille Inc., where we specialize in you.
Ted Van Son Jr. is a seasoned investigator and well-versed in the ways of paranormal investigation. He is now ready to share his ideas and unique approach with all of you. Flashlight, recorder, and comfortable shoes. Hit the ground running as you follow this easy step-by-step guide to a fun and thorough paranormal investigation, perfect for first-time and lightly seasoned investigators. Think outside the paranormal box. Learn all about the technology and techniques used back in the early days of paranormal investigation. You can find these valuable resources online at Goodreads, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, and Amazon. Get yours today.
Hi, I'm Jenna Grover. In the world of fashion, we get lost in the cost. Everyone wants that special piece of quality jewelry, but they can't afford it. Not on my watch. I sell handmade quality jewelry for a fraction of the price, and that includes jewelry made of sea glass, natural stone, crystal beads, glass beads, Bigfoot jewelry, and more. If you don't see what you want, email me, because I make custom jewelry too. Check out my website at gbythesea.com. Also, you can email me at jewelry@gbythesea.com. You're listening to WLFE DB Radio. Now, back to our program.
And we're back.
Yay.
We do have a question here from Steve Phillips. He says, just tuning in, have you ever had an investigation make you emotional?
For me personally, not so much in the moment emotional. A lot of the evidence that we actually notice when we go back and do evidence review. So on our voice recorders or on our static cameras that we leave in the location during the investigation. And the one that comes to mind is we were at Hales Bar Dam, which is in Tennessee, and Michelle there's a series of tunnels that run under this dam. And so Michelle and Cara were actually conducting what we call an EVP session, where basically they were just asking questions. And when we went back and reviewed that audio, when Michelle had asked the question, why are you still here? Why haven't you moved on? We captured a child's voice saying, I can't, I'm stuck. And when I heard it, to me, it was heartbreaking. And so that made me emotional at that moment. But in the moment of an investigation, nothing has been that profound that has made me emotional.
I've had on a couple different occasions, and I kind of look at it this way, being a solo investigator or being, with just one other person, you don't really have other people that can really spread that emotion around, because we do sometimes get in these highly emotional and empathetic type situations. So you don't really have the other person to deflect. And just as we're triggering these spirits, they can also come back and trigger us. And so without having, the other people, I've had that happen on a couple occasions. One that comes to mind was Willow's Weep in Cayuga, Indiana. A very oppressed house with a lot of different stories about it. I think some of them are a little embellished, but I do think that there are a lot of tragic stories. And the majority of them, it does deal with death and suicide and a lot of real negative emotion. And I know a lot of people, it's known as the most evil house in America. I don't personally, I don't agree with that or think that's the case. And I also went in with different intentions. I didn't go in with the intentions of all the different stories that I heard. I went in thinking that some of them may be embellished, but that I wanted to learn for myself. And so, so I researched the history, but as far as the actual hauntings and hotspot, I kind of stayed away from that so that I wasn't influenced. But I can definitely say that while I was in there with another female investigator, we did have a very emotional experience, which kind of led me to the conclusion that a lot of the things that you're experiencing in there is kind of the demons you bring in or the emotions that you bring in. And so, and also the house was just not in a great state, which would be depressing to anybody anyways. And so, at that particular location, and then also I was investigating, I did a 2-night investigation last year down in Kosciuszko, Mississippi, the old Italo jail. And what's interesting about this, the first night was the funeral home and the second night was the old Italo jail. And I actually did these two completely solo. And it was only a couple months after my dad had passed. And so I kind of made the mistake while I was in the jail of talking about, I knew the owners, and I was telling them about dad passing and some of the different experiences that I had experienced. And I really feel like, you're in a location, not a negative location, but you know how a jail is. These folks are not good people. And if you're negative in life, you may be negative as a spirit. And so I feel like before, and I actually was telling these stories about my father inside the jail. And so I feel like the spirits were fully aware of what I was doing. And once they left, they saw that as my Achilles heel and kind of used that to trigger me and really made me emotional. So I feel like they were kind of throwing that back. So those two particular investigations are two that I've become emotional at while I've been investigating or felt a really strong emotion.
That's a really good question. Thank you for answering that so beautifully, both of you.
Thank you for the question, Steve.
Yes, thank you.
I don't know if you saw this pop up, but Peppy Purple Eyes says, I remember watching that episode and I was getting emotional and feeling odd.
Yeah, we did not actually, because the other investigator that was with me, it was we were there, I think, from about 8 o'clock at night till around noon the very next day, and we did sleep there. We didn't really share a lot of the emotion that we experienced because a lot of it was really just, a lot of things happen when you're not doing active investigating. So we were sitting in the living room just having a personal conversation and recording that. And we both found that we were digging up some deep emotional things that, we're good, close friends, but it's things that you might not just be sitting and normally talking about, and so I think that a lot of that was being pulled from the location. So I didn't really show that emotional side because, it's sometimes kind of hard to show those personal experiences when you're putting them on video. But we definitely did. And it's interesting. I've had Peppy and then several other folks tell me the same thing, that they were either experiencing physical pain in different areas or they were also experiencing emotional pain during that episode.
Interesting. Yeah, that's I get that sometimes when on my ghost tours where I just feel like an overwhelming, like just bizarre emotion that it almost feels like it's not my emotion.
And you know that, and that was when I was at the jail, because that's something I've not really shared a whole lot about, but because it did affect me in the moment. I think you have to realize that. You realize it's not your emotion. You realize you really have to be aware of everything that's going on. And I'm always saying one of the best things that an investigator can do is not investigate while they're highly emotional or if they're stressed or upset or anything. Go in, as grounded and as clean-minded as you can, because that can be, it can be triggered and can be used back on you. And so I think it's important to realize that, because it can really kind of mess with your head a little bit.
Yeah. Before we get into one of my questions, I just want to draw everybody's attention to that banner that's scrolling along the bottom. Please check out Soul Sisters Paranormal and ghostbikerexplorations.com. And the ladies both have Facebook pages, so you can check them out there, like them, follow them, share them, get the word out because they're awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what has been your favorite place to investigate?
I'll answer that. Historically, on a historical basis, I would say Fort Mifflin. Like I said before, that fort is just amazing with the historical background behind it. It was a Revolutionary War fort. It was commissioned in 1771. So that was just an amazing experience for the historical perspective as well as the paranormal perspective. As far as evidence, I would really say that Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary has been a great investigation location for us. We've actually been there twice. Once as a collaboration with Ghost Biker. And then also the Grand Old Lady Hotel in Sylvan, North Carolina. We've gotten some of our best evidence there. Again, we were collaborating with Miranda, but what was so cool is this was a 3-story hotel. It was built in 1905. It has about 100 rooms, and we had the entire hotel to ourselves for the weekend. So we were the only people on the property. So it was myself and Jenny from Soul Sisters and then Miranda. And we were experiencing such amazing things that weekend. Miranda used the first night for her investigation, and then Soul Sisters used the second night for our investigation. And during our investigation, we had a table turnover. We were in the kitchen, and we asked for a sign that somebody was here, and the coffee pot turned on, which was kind of interesting. And then one of the most compelling pieces of evidence was we actually all decided, the 3 of us, to sleep in a suite that was next door, or that was adjacent to the most haunted hotel, or the haunted hallway in the hotel. And the way the suite is situated, there's one room, one bed in the outer room, and then a couple beds in the second room. And so, but there's only one door that is you can access the room by. So we had closed the door, and we had a night vision video camera on the outside of the door and a night vision video camera on the inside of the door. So you can hear us on the voice recorder and on the cameras. We say our goodnights, and about 15 minutes later, we very clearly capture a male on the outside of the door saying, "Please don't go." And Miranda said, "Did y'all hear that?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "What do you think that sounded like?" And I said, "There's a man outside our door." And she's like, "That's what I thought." And it was probably one of the clearest EVPs that we've captured. So I'd say the Grand Old Lady and Brushy are high on the top of my list.
Yeah, and I have so many. I don't think we have enough hours for me to talk about that. But yeah, I definitely
We'll have to do it again.
Exactly. You know, because they're all so different. Exactly. And you know, whether it be for the historical or just the amount of activity, I definitely agree with Kristy on the Grand Old Lady. That one is quickly one of my favorite locations because it was just good, solid activity. And, you know, so there was that one, the old Gilchrist County Jail that I did as a collaboration with Kristy, and it was just her and myself on that one. That was one where we were getting hits on different tools. We pulled out all of our tools that we had on this one, and they were corroborating the activity. You know, if we would get activity on the SLS camera, we were getting activity on the EVI boxes. And if we were getting somebody turning a flashlight on, we were getting activity on, you know, the SLS or whichever tool we were using. They were all working together to sort of corroborate what was happening on the other tool. Brushy Mountain, definitely, that's one I've investigated, that one on 6 different occasions, and I've slept in that one, and that's one where I probably got some of the best EVP evidence that I've ever captured, as far as I slept down in the hole in the solitary confinement area, and I slept for 3.5 hours down there and got about 3 minutes and 30 seconds, or 3 minutes and 15 seconds of Class A EVPs. A lot of intelligent activity for everything. Everything from, you know, honestly, I was more afraid of the rattlesnakes that get in there sometimes and that's what I was afraid I was going to have a snake in my boot. But now if I had heard what was going on in real time, my opinion might have changed a little bit. But yeah, I got some great footsteps. Something told me night night. And so I believe those were intelligent. But then we also got what I thought was residual. The laundry area is upstairs. And now there's no power in this building. And so it got what sounded like the dryer door opening and running, and then conversations going on, because these areas in solitary confinement, I mean, they call it the hole. You're literally down in a hole and it's pitch black. And so you get the conversation. I also got what sounded like 5 minutes of a ball being thrown against the wall and bouncing back and forth. So, so there's definitely that one. And I would have to say kind of a more obscure location that I did that's one of my favorites was the 1944 troop train accident. And that it's not a known location, which is a place I like to cover the ones that aren't very well known. But it was where one of the worst troop train accidents occurred, and it was a daytime investigation. I wanted to be able to show that not everything has to happen of a night. And, you know, we used some different tools, and then also bringing awareness and doing a tribute to the military men who had passed away in this location. It's only marked by a little 8x8 sign. So I wanted to do what I could to get the word out on this really big historical event and see if there was any paranormal activity. So that's probably one of my newer favorites.
Wow. To BJ Summerlin's comment here, all this is so fascinating. It really is.
Well, thank you. Appreciate everybody watching. And just to Miranda's point, for those that really don't know that are watching, there are two types of what we call paranormal evidence. The first one is what we call residual, and the second is what we call intelligent. And to Miranda's point, we capture a variation of that in all of the locations that we go to. So when she said intelligent, what quickly came to my mind also was the Lizzie Borden house. We are collaborating with Miranda at the Lizzie Borden house, and this is a fascinating house. And you know, you see it on the History Channel or the Travel Channel or whatever. But to be able to actually go in and have that really tactile experience with this history of this house was just an amazing experience. And so we had set up our equipment. We got there early in the afternoon, and we were all setting up our equipment. And so there were 4 Soul Sisters investigators and Miranda. And so we had set up some voice recorders in the parlor room where Andrew Borden was killed. And after we had set that one up, we were continuing on setting up things in the rest of the house. And Jenny and Michelle were just kind of sitting there talking. And when we went back and reviewed the evidence or the voice recorder from that room, as they were talking, we captured a male's voice saying, "I'm right here standing next to you." And neither one of them heard that in the moment.
I got goosebumps.
It was actually very, very intriguing. And then later on during the night, Jenny and Cara were sitting there talking, and we had investigated at the Villisca Axe Murder House. So they were talking about the differences of the Villisca Axe Murder House and the Lizzie Borden Axe Murder House. And Cara just happened to say, you know, they're different houses, but what a horrible way to go. It would have been a horrible way to die like that. And we captured a male's voice saying it was. And again, that was extremely telling. So for us, that's an example of intelligent responses. They're listening to our conversation, and they're giving us an intelligent response.
And they were something that's also important is these were straight EVPs out of the air. This was not aided by any type of ITC or any type of spirit box or anything. This was just straight EVPs.
Interesting.
One of our best pieces of equipment are those voice recorders, because you know we leave them up, as I said before, as stationary equipment in different parts of the location that we're investigating, and then we go back and we listen to all of that audio. So if we've got 10 voice recorders running for 10 hours, we're listening to 100 hours of audio, and we pick up things that we don't hear in the moment, which, you know, to Miranda's point, those unaided EVPs are some of the best, most compelling, unexplainable pieces of evidence that we can get.
Yeah, and we account, I can speak for Soul Sisters on this because I know that's one of the things they always do. On my videos, on my last season, I started putting in there everything, documenting the temperature, the time, the moon phase, who was on the property, you know, because sometimes if we're doing commercial locations, sometimes we're lucky and there's nobody else there. Other times there may be, you know, a docent or tour guide or something that stays in a designated location. But we always try to account for all outside factors, and we'll make notes if it's somewhere that's got outside contamination. we always try to account for that. And if when she says that we're watching video and audio, if we have a static camera, we always have an audio recorder there. So we'll know if anybody, either from the team if we're collaborating, or if, it's just myself, we'll know if anybody's wandered in, or if there's a chance of anything else, or if it could actually be unexplained activity.
Mm-hmm.
Natalie here says, this is why I don't do EVPs in my residence. I don't want to know who might be watching me sleep.
Amen, Natalie.
It's true. I love how scientific it all is. You're reviewing all the data, you're collecting all of this information. It's just, it's amazing.
I'm sorry. We feel that is what is extremely important, and I know I can speak to Miranda for this as well. We go in first and foremost trying to find those environmental factors that could explain the activity that's going on, whether it be a commercial location or residential that we're doing. So we're very cognizant of the fact that other environmental factors could be influencing all of this. And absent that, when we control for everything that we can control for, light pollution, noise pollution, crowd pollution, any of that stuff, what we're left with is what we call the unexplainable evidence. And we're very conscious of that fact that we want to put out there, because our names are associated with this. We want to put out there things that we feel that we cannot explain when we control for everything else. Now, if somebody wants to come to us and say, well, I think it's this, then we want to have that dialogue, because we want to find if there is a logical explanation for it. We want to find it and put it out there. But what we put out there in our videos are those things that in the moment we absolutely cannot explain.
Mm-hmm. Jillian's question here is, how do I do EVPs in my house? Would the voice memo on my iPhone work?
Yes, that would work. I mean, I have multiple recorders, some high dollar ones. Most of the high dollar ones I use when I'm recording my story and with the different microphones. But then just simple, I think I have 8 or 9 voice recorders that I always keep one on me and then keep some out. Just a simple Sony dictation recorder, one that, you can even get some that you can't pull the audio off for like $15, So either a simple recorder or a phone would work.
So if somebody real quick before I ask this question, just back to the Lizzie Borden house. Do you think Lizzie did it?
I do. I do, but I don't think it's for the reasons that a lot of people assume. I do think that there was some family issues, not so great things that was happening to her and her sister, which led her to do that. But I do think that she stayed in Fall Rivers and took it like a champ. She never left the area. She lived there until she died in, I believe, 1927. So kudos to her for staying. I mean, she had all the money, so she could have left, but she stood there and she took it for all the years that she was alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she probably did, and I agree. I think that there were different circumstances, but I also think that she had some help.
Mm-hmm.
I think she did too. That's a lot of work. That was a lot of work.
Yeah.
Real quick, we only have a few minutes left, and I can't believe that it's gone this fast. I say that every show, but this one, it really went fast. Do you have any recommendations for somebody who wants to do some paranormal investigation? They're not sure where to start. Just real quick, like any basic things that they can do. Any little easy things.
For me personally, I would say get a voice recorder. Again, just a $30 simple thing off Amazon. Go to a location, a cemetery, a place in your back, your community or your backyard that is reported to have activity, and just ask questions. Go in with the right intentions. Don't go in just trying to get a jump scare or anything like that. Go in with the right intentions of actually trying to communicate. And then once you have that session and you're asking those questions, go back and listen to the voice recorder. Listen to everything. Don't just pick and choose the minutes that you want to listen to. Listen to everything. I think, I can echo Miranda when I say that, a lot of people hear, but not a lot of people listen. And for us, it requires patience and listen to everything. That's my advice.
Yeah, and be realistic, with it, because TV has really Hollywooded all this up, and they've condensed, what we spend a full night doing, into 30 minutes or an hour. So be patient and don't get discouraged if you don't get activity. One, it doesn't mean it's not haunted, and one, it doesn't mean, that you're not doing something right. But definitely don't worry about going and investing in, all the bells and whistles equipment. If a ghost wants to communicate, it can communicate through the simplest ways, So, but see if you like it, go out, find a place, and like Kristy said, just ask questions and think outside the box, because there's one of the tools that I always take with me is a whiteboard, and I'll write the questions on the whiteboard without even asking them, to see if they can see us or see if they can communicate that way. So just think outside the box. There's no stupid experiments.
Exactly.
And Peppy's comment here, and always state you're not there to hurt or harm them, only to get their story. That's important.
Yes. Absolutely, and it's reciprocal. That they can't harm you. That they need to respect the boundaries. So absolutely, Peppy, great idea.
So we only have a couple minutes left. Any suggestions, like to protect yourself when you're doing these investigations?
And we always say a prayer of protection when we go in, and a prayer of protection when we come out. And we always state our intentions when we go in, and that, like I said, those boundaries and expectations, i.e., you're not allowed to harm us, you're not allowed to touch us or come home with us. You can touch us if we say that you can, but otherwise, no.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I always do a prayer of protection before and after, and honestly, during, because we never know what's happening. But yeah, definitely state your intentions, and I would say always go in stress-free, clear mind, and of a calm presence, and you'll be okay. Mm-hmm.
Perfect way to wrap up the show. Everybody, please check out Soul Sisters Paranormal and Ghost Biker Explorations. Check out their websites. Check out Facebook. Please go see their videos because they are awesome. Any last words, ladies?
No, we just appreciate everybody's support. Thank you for having us tonight. Thank you for all the people who have commented and watched. We really do appreciate the support.
Yes, thank you, everyone. You guys are great. And you can catch up on past seasons of Ghost Biker. We're rolling into the 4th season, so you can watch all the past 3 seasons and lives on Facebook and YouTube, and same with Soul Sisters Paranormal. You can catch up on all their stuff that they have on those platforms.
Excellent. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for being here tonight. I so appreciate it, and I had so much fun.
Thank you. We really appreciate you.
Hang out right there. I'm going to pop you out for a minute, and I'll meet up with you soon. Thank you. Well, my creepy darlings, that's about all we have for this evening. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight. Don't forget to check out WLFE-DB.com. You can watch all of our shows on TV now, on Stream TV. We also we have 3 different channels. We have Paranormal View, we have LGBTQ Friends, and we have Variety Unlimited. There's stuff for everybody on that station, so please check us out. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook, like, follow, and share. Coming up next, we have Where's My Sage? Stay tuned for that. It's going to be a great night. You can also check me out on Psychomantium 13 in addition to the Creepy Parlor. So please come and visit us. Thank you for a wonderful evening. And I will see you next week, where I am hosting the Gregory Hallows from the Halloween Preservation Society. So I'm really excited about that one. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you next Tuesday.
Thank you for joining us on the Creepy Parlor. Join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern for another fantastic show.